Welcome to the amazing world of dinosaurs. I'm Tyler, and this is Anna.
Did you know that paleontologists have been finding dinosaur eggs since the 1800s?
But it wasn't until the 1920s that paleontologists realized the eggs they were finding were from dinosaurs.
For all that time, they thought they were actually finding bird eggs.
And it was only 30 years ago that paleontologists found the first newborn baby dinosaur bones.
And the idea of dinosaur parenting arose.
And it took a while for most paleontologists to agree.
Yeah, only in the 21st century has evidence for dinosaur parenting really been found.
The exploration of dinosaur babies and parenting is the forefront of dinosaur studies today.
Find out about baby dinos on
Dinosaur Eggs and Babies.
We all know what these are. They are eggs. Chicken eggs, to be exact. All birds lay eggs. Owls, cranes, geese, even big birds like ostriches, and South American rheas. Did you know that reptiles also lay eggs, like this big old snapping turtle? Even alligators lay eggs. But what's really cool is that hundreds of millions of years ago, some dinosaurs were laying eggs too. Everyone wondered if their eggs were like bird eggs or reptile eggs.
Work on dinosaur eggs and baby dinosaurs has been rather revealing as far as understanding dinosaur relationships. For example, if we take this ostrich egg and we look at it, cut a section of it, make it so thin that we can see through it with a microscope, we will see that the structure of the eggshell is in fact very, very similar to the eggs of many dinosaurs. Now that's rather interesting because if we then also do the same thing with a crocodile egg, the egg structure is very, very, very different. So it's kind of hard to argue that birds evolved from a crocodile ancestor. Dinosaur eggs are rather an interesting structure because remarkably, even though they're very, very old and they often have a dark color, they are in fact not too different from this ostrich egg. With the dinosaur egg, we still have a lot of the original eggshell material, calcium. And the ostrich egg, and in fact almost any egg, will have these very, very fine pits all over them. Those are the pores. That's how the developing embryo breathes. And in fact, if we look at dinosaur eggs, we see the very same structure. Other things that we suspect is that on the inside of, say, this ostrich egg, there is a lining of membranes that keep the yolk and whatnot from seeping out of the pores. And remarkably, there's been some reports of that very same membrane material from some eggshells from Mongolia. As far as we can tell, dinosaur eggs, despite the fact that they're very, very old, millions of years old, are very similar to a modern bird egg.
Interesting. So dinosaur eggs were more like bird eggs. But not all dinosaur eggs were exactly the same. In fact, dino eggs came in many shapes and sizes. Take a look at these eggs. These round, globe-like eggs came from plant-eating dinosaurs, like Hadrosaurus, a duck-billed dinosaur like this. These elongated eggs came from meat-eating or theropod dinosaurs, such as this oviraptor. In fact, dinosaurs, especially plant eaters, laid eggs that so closely resembled bird eggs that for decades, paleontologists thought they actually were bird eggs.
The original dinosaur egg discoveries were actually made in Britain and France in the 19th century, but at that time they didn't recognize that they had dinosaur eggs. They were almost invariably identified as bird eggs. 1920s saw the American Museum of Natural History's expeditions into Central Asia, and they found dinosaur eggs. They also didn't recognize what they had the first year. They picked up one of the eggs and they thought it was an interesting bird egg. But the second year, the association was so strong between dinosaur skeletons and nests of eggs that they couldn't deny it anymore. These were definitely dinosaur eggs.
Dinosaur eggs have basically been found everywhere in the world. They've been found in Europe, Asia, North America, South America, you name it, dinosaur eggs have been found there. There's over 200 localities known worldwide.
So dinosaur eggs are found all over the world?
That's right, and in many shapes and sizes.
If dinosaur eggs were a lot like bird eggs, I wonder if their nests were too.
That's a good question. I mean, did they build their nests with twigs high up in trees?
Probably not. Most dinosaurs walked on land.
Well then, I wonder how they built their nests.
Let's find out.
There are so many different kinds of dinosaurs. Scary ones like the T-Rex. Horned ones like the Triceratops. Huge ones like the Brontosaurus. And heavily armored ones like Ankylosaurus. Could it be that they all built their nests the same? Did they even build nests at all?
A lot of animals today will incorporate a lot of vegetation in their nests. For example, the alligator will use a mound of both mud and leaves in making the mound with the eggs in it, and as the leaves decay, it produces heat, and that's what keeps the eggs warm. Some birds, however, will just simply lay their eggs right there on the ground, but they're kind of speckled and they kind of blend in. So we have to be careful then if we look at the fossil record to say that dinosaurs had to been one way or the other. There is such a variety of egg-laying behavior today, it was probably the same true with dinosaurs.
In fact, it was true. Let's look at the nests of theropod dinosaurs. Almost 100 years ago, at this site in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, paleontologists were finding dinosaur egg nests that were laid in perfect circles. Pete Larson is a world-famous dinosaur hunter. He made the most famous dinosaur discovery ever, an almost complete skeleton of a T-Rex called Sue. How did theropod dinosaurs build their nests?
The arrangement of theropod nests tells us a number of very interesting things about the behavior of theropods and also about their physiology, about their reproductive system. We see that as they laid their eggs, they rotated, but we also see this very interesting paired arrangement of eggs. That circular arrangement of eggs, in addition to the pairing, also tells us a little bit more about the reproductive system. Birds of today, which are actually very closely related to these extinct theropods, birds of today will lay one egg a day or one egg every other day. But theropods, those extinct animals, actually must have laid a complete clutch of eggs at one sitting. And we see this, I believe this is true because of the very careful arrangement of those eggs. There's actually only a few degrees of turning, and it's repeated. The dinosaur would lay 2 eggs, it would turn and lay 2 eggs more, it would turn again and lay 2 eggs more, until it makes this nice spiral of eggs, because it would have been almost impossible for that dinosaur to go back to its nest day after day to lay another pair of eggs and have it arranged in this very specific order, in this spiral arrangement. So that we see that that's very different than living birds.
Cool, so theropod dinosaurs laid their eggs in tight circles.
Yeah, I wonder how plant-eating dinosaurs laid their eggs.
I know. We could ask Luis Chiappi.
Right. Why didn't I think of that? He found the largest dinosaur nesting site ever discovered.
That's right. It's in South America, in Argentina, and all the eggs found in this site are sauropod, or large plant eaters like Brontosaurus.
Let's take a look.
Well, we found this place, which is a fantastic site, in 1997. We were actually looking for very different stuff. We were looking for the ancestors of birds and early birds, and then we discovered this flat area where essentially the ground was littered with eggshells. And when we did a little bit more of reconnaissance of the whole area, we realized that we had found this enormous dinosaur nesting site extending over miles and miles, clearly the largest dinosaur nesting site ever found. We have some beautiful evidence that they build nests in that, essentially that they dug holes, presumably the females, and laid the eggs inside and didn't bury them.
At first, Luis didn't know what kind of dinosaurs he had found. It wasn't until he was able to look inside the egg that he knew for sure that they were sauropods.
Well, at the very beginning of the expedition, we found the eggs, but we didn't really know what kind of dinosaurs had laid them because we didn't have embryos, which is sort of like the ultimate proof that you need. But in time, we found the embryonic remains inside the eggs, and when they were prepared, we realized that they were sauropod dinosaurs. The long-necked dinosaurs, like the Brontosaurus type of creatures. And that's why we've called them the tiniest giants, because we knew that we had found the tiniest fossils of the largest creatures that ever walked on the earth.
How was Luis able to look inside the egg?
Good question. They can't just crack open a 100-million-year-old egg, can they?
Dr. Bob Bacher is one of the most famous paleontologists in the world. He knows everything about dino eggs.
This is a spectacularly good dinosaur egg. That's the top. It was buried totally in this nice, pretty red sandstone. That's the bottom. Now this egg is totally unbroken, uncrushed. It'd be wonderful to know whether there's a dinosaur still in here, an unhatched skeleton of a baby dinosaur. You could break it. That's old style. But what we do now is put this into a three-dimensional X-ray, a CAT scan. And if you got the right CAT scan power, you can look inside the fossil. And if there's a baby dinosaur in here, a skeleton, it'll show up on the 3D X-ray. And if it's there, then you can very carefully with needles pull away some of the fossil eggshell and get into the center of the egg where you might get the skull and the neck and the legs all flexed up.
There's another way paleontologists can tell what kind of dinosaur eggs they have. But they have to get really lucky. Sometimes they can find a dinosaur hatchling, a newborn dinosaur that has just hatched from its egg. Charlie McGovern was one of those lucky paleontologists. He found baby Louie, one of the most famous dinosaur babies in the world. Baby Louie's short life looked something like this. He hatched from his egg and slowly moved out into the world. Then, mysteriously, he died. Almost right after he died, he was covered by sediment. Charlie's unique discovery inspired other dinosaur hunters to look for hatchlings, especially oviraptor hatchlings that can be found in the Gobi Desert.
What we have here is a very unique specimen from China. It's a group of dinosaur eggs with an embryo or baby dinosaur lying on top. You can see the eggs here. They're very long, maybe 18 inches in length. There's 3 relatively complete ones and just a partial one over here. This is an oviraptor type dinosaur. It's very bird-like in some of its characteristics. Here you can see the head region. This is where the eye would have been. This is the front of the snout. Down here is the body region. Here's the hips and the hind legs.
Did you know that oviraptors lived over 70 million years ago?
And did you also know that the name oviraptor means egg eater?
That's right. People originally thought that because adult oviraptor bones were found near nesting sites, that they were eating eggs.
But it turns out they were just really good parents who always stayed close to their young.
Let's see just how good these misunderstood mothers were at parenting.
For years, paleontologists didn't know if dinosaur parents did anything to take care of their eggs. Then, in 1993, the American Museum of Natural History discovered a unique fossil, a mother oviraptor skeleton, spread out, protecting her unhatched eggs. Today, most paleontologists agree that this mother was brooding or sitting on her eggs until they hatched.
Well, starting in 1993, we discovered some great oviraptor fossils in the Gobi Desert. Now, these are great because they're actually snapshots of time. It's an animal sitting on top of its nest, brooding its eggs, just like a modern bird would. Some people have questioned our interpretation of it, saying that, in fact, this animal either died in this position, just haphazardly associated with the nest, or it was in the act of laying eggs. But I think we can really disqualify that on a number of grounds. One of the major ones is we found other individuals now. We've found 2 more at the same locality in the Gobi Desert. There's one that was found at Bayanmandahu in China. All of these animals have the same stereotypical position of sitting in the middle of the nest with their arms wrapped back around the perimeter of the nest. So just because we always find them in the same position really indicates to me, in fact, that they are brooding their eggs in the same way that modern birds do today.
The association of eggs with dinosaur skeletons from the adults gives us different perceptions as to whether or not dinosaurs took care of their young or not. The reality is that, like modern animals, dinosaurs probably were quite variable in how they treated their young. In some cases, they may have laid the eggs and left. And so when the eggs hatched, the babies were left to fend for themselves. In other cases, they may have, in fact, stuck around and took care of their young.
So paleontologists don't think all dinosaurs were able to care for their eggs. Take the humongous sauropods like Brontosaurus. They would sure look funny sitting on their eggs like a bird. So how could they watch their eggs?
The fact that they're very close to one another, sometimes 5, 6, 10 feet apart, the clutches, and considering that these animals were big animals, I mean, there were animals the size of a school bus or even bigger, we can't imagine that a particular female hang out in the vicinity or near its own nest, because otherwise you would expect to find a whole mess there and every egg trampled, and we don't. The eggs are relatively well preserved. There isn't a lot of eggshell in between the clutches, so there's indication that they probably laid the eggs and then went somewhere else.
Wait a minute. If no one took care of Brontosaurus babies, how do they survive? Don't tell me they just got up and started walking around.
That's exactly what they did. Some dinosaurs were precocial, which means that as soon as they were born, they can move and find food.
Really? You mean they were like ducks and geese and can follow their mom right after they hatched?
Yeah. Let's let Luis finish what he was saying.
They definitely hatched in a precocial way. The embryos are very well ossified, which suggests that the animals were probably very, very well built to walk and be very independent at the time they hatched. Well, we don't have any indication here at this site that baby sauropods gather in great numbers after they hatched in what we call in bird jargon crash. But we do have evidence from footprints that apparently juvenile sauropods didn't join the herd until they were relatively large. So I would not be surprised if these animals also formed large groups of babies, perhaps under the protection of some adults, until later they joined the herd of adults and subadults.
Smaller plant eaters, like Hadrosaurus, might have also been able to move around freely after hatching.
we look at this cast of a baby hadrosaur, these bones, this is a cast, the actual bones were actually removed from an egg. So with these baby dinosaurs, it's been argued that the joints, for example, in the hips are so underdeveloped that they could not possibly have wandered from the nest. But in fact, these joints are at least as well developed as chickens that we can buy in the grocery store, and we know that those little chickens had been running around. So we can't rely too much on joints to say whether or not dinosaurs were restricted to the nest or not.
Oh, I see. So, are humans precocial?
Not exactly. We are altricial, which means that we need our parents to take care of us after we are born.
So were some dinosaurs altricial too?
You bet. There might even be some evidence that the scariest dinosaur that ever walked the earth took care of its babies until they were old enough to fend for themselves.
We can see that most birds today are altricial. The young hatchlings stay in the nest for weeks or even months while their parents bring them food to eat. Pete Larson thinks that the scariest predator to ever walk among the dinosaurs could also have been raised this way, the mighty T-Rex.
Theropod dinosaurs, as we saw, were able to actually brood their nests. They were able to provide heat for the developing young, the developing embryos within the eggs. But I believe that that care, that parental care, actually went beyond that. And we see in dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus rex, we have found cases, multiple cases of multiple burials of different individuals. In the case of Sue, of course the most famous Tyrannosaurus rex, when we excavated her, we actually found the remains of a smaller male, a juvenile whose skull was only 18 inches long compared with Sue's 5-foot-long skull, and parts of a baby T-Rex whose skull was only about 10 inches long. So if we're finding these T-Rexes buried together, we can assume pretty reliably that they actually lived together, and I believe they probably function in family units. The female and male raising the young to a certain point before they would go off on their own. And I think it takes, when we're looking at predatory animals like this, it takes two to raise that brood of young, because they have to be able to be fed and be watched as they're developing, and someone has to bring food to the person sitting on the nest, or the individual sitting on the nest, and it's a cooperative effort. And that's one of the reasons that they're, I think, very comparable to living birds of prey.
So, the next time you see a scary T-Rex in a movie,
just remember that he had a mom and dad who sort of loved him and took care of him.
we've learned a bunch about how all kinds of dinosaurs lived and had babies millions of years ago.
In the next episode, we're going to see how paleontologists find and dig up dinosaur bones.
See you next time on
The Amazing World of Dinosaurs.